Hola, and welcome to Vive Nutrition Radio, the first ever Spanglish podcast where you will hear interviews with the top minds in nutrition, performance, fitness, and health in both English and Spanish. Here is your host, expert registered dietitian, Andres Ayesta, on a mission to help you take your nutrition to the next level. Hope you're ready for this. Let's dive right in.
What is up, boys and girls? Welcome back to yet another episode of Vive Nutrition Radio. This is episode number 23. We have the pleasure today of having a really cool guest. Her name is Katy Henderson, and Katy is a nutrition coach, particularly for women. If you go on her Instagram, you're going to find her as a personal trainer and coach, and she essentially teaches women how to fix their metabolism, find freedom in nutrition, and crush their goals. I connected with Katy. She's part of my same mastermind group through, I believe, mentorship with Tony Stephan. And we had a cool conversation. I think it was up in New York in one of our mastermind events. And Katy and I sat together in the same kind of like couch when we were listening to Tony. And we kind of shared a lot of stuff when it comes down to nutrition. And I told her, I was like, Katy, you need to come into my podcast and you need to talk about what you do. So that's exactly what we did today. Katy is specialized in working with women. She is a personal trainer. So she does have a ton of background on that. And today we talked a bit about, the place where women find themselves when they're kind of like stuck in some place where they don't really have they don't know where to go. It's like they're plateauing, and a lot of times it's like trying to figure out if it's a metabolic issue or, trying to figure out where to go from there. And essentially what Katy does is try to fix that and help them through that process. In today's conversation, we dove into some really applicable things, so make sure you grab a pen and paper to take some notes, because we talked about important things that your home gym needs to have, like, some basic things so you can get a nice little workout in the comfort of your home. We talked about the fact that I'm just trying to build my own here in like a fourth bedroom that we have, and it's, it still needs a lot of work, but she gave you some really cool tips on how to go about that. So if you're a person that's really interested in getting some really cool tips as far as, exercise and training and understanding exactly how metabolism works, make sure you listen to this episode number 23 with Katy Henderson. Hope you enjoy it, and I will see you guys next week. All right, guys, welcome back to Vive Nutrition Radio. This is your host, Andres, and I am pretty excited today because, as you heard on the intro, I had the pleasure to have a rock star in today's show. So I actually met Katy a couple weeks ago in New York City, and she's an absolute, like I said, rock star. So we met in a mastermind that we're both together with Tony Stephan and his, I believe, mentorship. And we got to talk, a little bit into the whole aspect of, females and strength training and things like that. So I decided I want to bring it on the podcast. So Katy, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me, Andres. I'm really excited to be on here.
No problem. We're excited to have you because we're going to talk about some really fun stuff today. But why don't we start off this conversation, because I always like to start off with people's stories. And I know that, everybody has their own story and how they came about becoming a nutrition coach, a trainer. So why don't you give us a little background on you and how you came about to do what you do today?
Yes, I would love that. So my story, I actually have not been in fitness my entire life. It's something that I was kind of brought into. I was actually a hairstylist previously, and just kind of compounded years of not really taking care of myself or my body. And I had decided enough was enough, and I wanted to get healthy and fit. And I probably made every single mistake that you could possibly make in this industry. Even before I was a trainer, I was the girl that was buying the diet pills on the detox train, doing an hour of cardio a day. I wish I could shake my old self, but the good thing about it is that it has made me the trainer and the nutrition coach that I am today. And I feel like I have been there, I have made all the mistakes, and it just makes me so much of a better coach because of that.
That's exciting. That's great. And I think a lot of women, and obviously my big target, audience is males and all that. But, of course I have girlfriends and wives, and I'm sure there's like a good amount of my audience and you guys listening in. I know you're women too. But I'm sure this may resonate to you. I think, what you said, Katy, of like how you started, because I feel like some people are still in the same spot that you were at the beginning. So a good question for you is like, what made you change to become what you're doing right now? What was like kind of like that click that made you say, you know what, like, F the detoxes, like I'm tired of doing this thing. And what was kind of like that little kind of pivot point in your lifestyle or in your life in the past that made you kind of change?
So I think getting to a point, I mean, you end up feeling very discouraged, and you get to a point where you're like, I have got to reach out for help. So that's what I did. And you reach out for help, you hire a trainer, you hire a coach, and it helped me so much that it made me want to be a trainer and a coach. So I think just realizing that, short-term weight loss is not what you want. We want long-term sustainable results. But we live in this world where there's so much information, there's so much confusion. I mean, if you type in how to lose weight in Google, you are going to give yourself an anxiety attack with all the information that comes up. And half of it just simply isn't true. You don't want to supplement your way to losing weight. You don't want to go on a detox for 2 weeks. You want sustainable results in the long term. So I think just making that connection that this isn't something that I want to be short term. I want this to be for life. I want to be strong and healthy and fit. And those things take time and commitment. It's so important to hire professionals for that stuff, because they're professionals for a reason and they will guide you in the right direction.
Yeah, I think it's pretty important, because I think it's not until somebody really kind of corrects your and kind of calls you out and a lot of the stuff that you thought what you're doing was right. So you're really like, you need that kind of person. Now the problem is finding the right person too, because I feel like there's a lot of, in fact, like, as you were telling me, like, if you type in how to lose weight on Google, I did it as you were talking, and like, the first like kind of results like come up, and like, 15 simple ways to lose weight in 2 weeks, diet doctor, and things like that. So I think it all comes down to also like finding the right type of help, because I feel like at this, like, we live in a social media world where like obviously this has become like a big business for many people. So it's like, I guess like it's really trying to find the right person,
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's realizing that your body and your goals deserve more than a generic plan that you found on Google, because everybody's body is so different, and in social media and online, everyone gets treated the same. Like, this program is not going to work the same for everybody. It's actually probably going to work for such a small percentage of people, but it's treated like it's going to work for everybody. And it just encourages this, disappointment and this guilt that I think especially women feel all the time. They feel like they're never succeeding when they're really just being guided in the wrong direction.
Yeah, I think it's just obviously, and it's like a vicious cycle, because they get guided in the wrong direction, and then they find something or somebody else, and then they get guided in the wrong direction again, and it just like goes on and on and on and on until it gets to a point where, and I wanted to get into this a little bit more, because I know in like one of your bios, like you try to like obviously fix like, women's like the hormonal problems just to make sure that they kind of get to a good result. So, like let's dive a little bit more into that, and then we're probably gonna talk after that to get into more like the muscle and muscle gaining in women and things like that. But I wanted to kind of get your take on like, when you get clients that are coming to you, and how do you define like fixing somebody's metabolism?
So what I do is I do a pretty in-depth consultation and a questionnaire on what their history is with nutrition, with working out. And then I also have them give me a very consistent idea for probably 5 to 7 days of what they're eating and what their metabolism is functioning off of. And that gives me a very good idea on where their metabolism is at, and then where I need to take them. If you have a woman who has just completely restricted, is eating, the smallest amount of carbohydrates and eating maybe 900 calories a day, and isn't losing any weight, it's like something is going on with her hormones and her metabolism over time where this has happened. So it's a process to fix it. It never happens overnight, but I think women especially, they're just in this mindset of restriction all the time, and they don't understand what they're doing to their hormones and their metabolism and how much damage they're doing just to try and lose a couple pounds for the weekend.
Yeah, I think that's very valid. I think it also happens in men, but it's like more predominant in women, because I think like women tend to see food as fat, not as fuel. I usually say that to people, like, so they just think like, eating too much is going to help you become fat, not the opposite, not fuel your body to actually work with you, not against you. And I think that's like a biggest thing that we tend to see a lot in women and men, but definitely like, I know you work with a lot of women all the time. So I think it's definitely something that resonates with a lot of people listening in on that. So,
no, I love that. I think that's such a good way to put it. And you fear this food because you think it's going to make you fat, but it's like, no, that is what's going to make you function. It's going to make you live. You can't just keep cutting calories. You're going to be living on nothing. You have got to fuel your body. And we have to break this fear for men and women around food. I mean, obviously there's a right and a wrong way to have a nutrition plan and what you're eating, but there has been this fear created around food that needs to be broken down, and we have to teach people that food is fuel and it can be fuel, and this is how we do it.
Okay, yeah, that's great. That's exactly what we try to do. Now, let's dive into one very important factor, which is like, I know you also deal with women and their fear of like, like building muscle or trying to kind of get to the gym, maybe in different various reasons, I'm sure, from the perspective of like wanting, being a little afraid to bulk up, or maybe just being a little insecure going to the gym and like, being surrounded by all these guys like training and lifting weights and things like that. So what's like we talk about muscle in women, what's the
yes.
Why do women need to be so worried about, or what do you tend to see, mentally, when women come to you for help, when it comes down to like, okay, I don't want to go to the gym, I don't want to lift too much heavy weight because X, Y, or Z, I don't want to look too bulky, what's the kind of sense that you usually tend to get from?
Oh, the bulky comment. I hear that on a daily basis. I don't want to get bulky. I don't want to get bulky. And I think women associate lifting weights with getting bulky. And we have to break that. One, you're not going to you could do the same workouts as a male and you're not going to get the muscle mass that a male is going to. We have different hormone profiles than men. We have lower testosterone than men. So I think associating that, you have a completely different hormone makeup, a completely different body. So you will not look like a guy or bulk up if you lift weights. Second thing, I think a lot of women think that strength training equals being, a CrossFit athlete or an Olympic lifter. And you can use strength training for all different types of fitness goals. I mean, if you want to reshape your body, you have to use strength training, but that doesn't mean that you have to lift like a CrossFit athlete.
Yeah, I think that's pretty powerful because it happens often, and it's not until women start to kind of dive into it and understanding, how their body starts to shape up nicely, that they're like, oh, wow, like this makes perfect sense now. And I still tend to see it even in some CrossFit athletes that they start to like, because I do work with a lot of CrossFit athletes, particularly women, and they have kind of got to a point where it's like, oh, I don't want my legs to continue to grow. And I'm like, what's the reason for it? And she's like, well, it's kind of look too bulky. And those are the kind of conversations that sometimes it's important to have because of the understanding that it's not going to happen the same thing as men because of like the reasons that you stated. So I think that's very important. Now, go ahead. No, go ahead.
One thing that I say is you have to bulk up your diet if you want to bulk up your body.
Yeah.
I mean, if you're in a calorie deficit and you're doing strength training, you're not going to bulk up. If you want to put on muscle and you want to bulk up, yeah, you can do that. But these women that I think have amazing bodies, that are beautiful, that are strong, but that some women would consider bulky. These are women that lives are dedicated to this, and they strength train 6 times a week, and their nutrition and their supplementation is specifically for building muscle. So unless you're doing that, you're not going to look like that.
Yeah, I think so. So I guess like we can kind of like dive into like the whole world, because I know there's a loose term, like it always gets thrown around when it comes down to, like strength training and women lifting weights and all that kind of stuff, which is toning up. And then I think that's the only reason why a lot of women like would touch a dumbbell, because of like, well, I want to tone up. And I know I hear that all the time. So, what do you think what does that mean specifically, like to tone up? Because I honestly, like at this point, like, does it mean like, to lose fat and gain muscle? Like, what does that mean to you right now?
No, I agree. It's a term that's thrown around so much. And so if you want me to be completely honest, I think toning up is like a term that has been coined in this industry to sell strength training to women without using the word muscle, without using the word strong, because in my consultations, I do this, and I'm not kidding you, it has worked like a charm. Every single woman that says they want to tone up, I'm like, that is awesome. I love that goal. I want you to send me a picture of somebody that is toned, of a picture that you think, that a body that you like that is toned. And every single time they send me a picture with a woman that has muscle on her body.
Like one of those fitness models, right?
Yeah, exactly. Your favorite Instagram model, whatever it is, toning up really refers to lean muscle mass. So in order to be toned, you have to have muscle on your body. If you want to see definition only comes in the form of muscle.
Yeah, I think that's important, and obviously having that clear distinction when it comes down to that. So I guess like you would agree then that strength training needs to be like an integral, like a very like important part of like, nutrition and fitness. And so what do you think that is?
Yeah, I absolutely think that. I mean, if you're looking to reshape your body, strength training is key. I mean, it can mean something different for every person. It can mean, CrossFit, Olympic weightlifting, more of a bikini, build. It can mean just strength training to get stronger and to feel good on a daily basis. So it doesn't always, it's associated so much with this muscle mass, and it's not. Like, there are so many amazing things that come along with strength training. You gain confidence, your body gets a different shape, you get stronger, your metabolism starts to become on fire and starts to become a fat burning machine. I mean, you got to get out of this mindset that it's like muscle mass, because it's so much more than that.
Yeah, I think that's powerful. Now, if we dive in, now that you mentioned like the word metabolism and things like that, so yeah, how would like strength training, especially for all like the cardio junkies out here, listening in, how does like strength training affect your metabolism as opposed to cardio? Because a lot of people like to obviously do the cardio because that's just like straight up fat loss. So I guess like what are like the main differences from the health and physiology perspective that you think are important for women to know, or men to, because I know this also sometimes applies to them, on the perspective of strength versus cardio training and cardiovascular type of training per se?
Yeah, so shout out to all the cardio junkies. I love that. But so cardio is amazing. I mean, it's good for your endurance. It's good for your heart. When we say cardio, we're talking mainly steady state cardio. So you see those people in the gym that are constantly on the ellipticals, the treadmills, and they're on there for a half hour, 45 minutes, either because they want to be, that's their comfort zone, or for a lot of people, they think that's what helps them lose weight. And yes, cardio burns calories, but that's where it stops. It burns the calories when you're in motion, but as soon as you get off that machine, your calorie burning stops. Where strength training continues to burn calories. So when you're strength training, you're breaking down muscle tissue and it's getting repaired. Okay, and that repair happens in the 24 to 48 hours after you get done strength training. So it consistently keeps burning calories. And it's also building muscle as you go, and that is what fuels your metabolism. And where cardio is a good addition to a strength training program, strength training should be your absolute foundation. So I'm not against cardio at all. And if you want to go, if cardio makes you feel good, if it makes you feel lean, if it's what clears your mind, go get that cardio. I am all for that. But it should be an addition to a strength training routine.
Okay, I love that, because I at some point during our conversation, I like to dive deep into some of your kind of practical applications and what you think would be a good Because I'm sure a lot of people listening in, they're going to start wondering, okay, how much cardio then should I do? How much of the strength training, and how should I separate that and stuff? So we'll get to that point in just a second. But I guess I wanted to also kind of like ask, like, first off, like, what is like, you know, like a good balance that could exist between those two? And because I know there's different kinds of cardio, so maybe let's try to define what cardiovascular type of training means, and maybe talk about the different kinds, because obviously that maybe include HIIT training, which is a little bit different. And then there's also like, you know, the steady state cardio, and, you know, there's many different forms. So like, how about we kind of define them and tell us a little bit more about, you know, how did you define cardio, and then what are the different kind of like modes that you can implement it?
Yeah, so HIIT training is probably one of my favorite forms of cardio because I think it's the most effective. So if you're not familiar with HIIT training, it's smaller bouts of cardio where you're really pushing. I like HIIT training, one, because it can incorporate strength training, two, because you're working your entire body, and you're working with purpose. So you're doing motions that are going to help, you know, primal movements that are going to help strengthen your body, whereas cardio, like steady state cardio and elliptical, is just kind of busy work. You know, yes, you are working muscle groups, but it's a little bit easier. You're not really pushing yourself as hard, where, I mean, HIIT training is definitely cardio, but I also consider it more strength training as well.
Okay, so it's like, and you cut out for 1 second when you were explaining HIIT cardio. So essentially, HIIT type of training. You mentioned, which, you know, HIIT stands for, it's like high interval training. But I always forget it. So it's HIIT. So it's high intensity interval training. Correct? That's usually what it stands for. Okay. So you were saying that it essentially is a type of form of cardio in which like there's like a higher bouts of like higher kind of like high heart rate type of training, followed by really small periods of rest. Correct?
Yes.
Okay, gotcha. I just wanted to make sure I understood that correctly.
Yeah,
okay.
So basically, you're working to more anaerobic exercise as opposed to aerobic, which would be more steady state cardio.
Yeah, aerobic being like more oxygen consuming, and the other one, yeah. So, and because I know that it's been, I've seen a lot of like, you know, there's a lot of gyms and new different kinds of modes of training that are like, you know, kind of popping up in cities and places like that. Of course, CrossFit being the most predominant, but a lot of time things like boot camp or, you know, some different kind of like fitness classes that kind of implements sort of like, you know, HIIT modality or HIIT type of like, you know, structure. So I think it's really interesting that that's actually also something that has been implemented. Yet I still see like a million cardio machines on floors, and I wish that they would.
I know. Well, I think with HIIT especially, there's a lot of, without getting like too scientific, there is a lot of like scientific evidence behind it and how it does reduce fat, and the way it's used, these intense workouts, it's amazing what it does for our bodies.
Yeah, I think that's the kind of thing that I recommend. So what is like a typical kind of like HIIT versus cardio versus strength training kind of split that you try to recommend women to implement, and sometimes even men, because I think a lot of times applies to both? You know, what's a healthy balance between all?
Yeah, so I mean, like, let's say we're just talking basic HIIT training. I mean, you're going to be doing big body movement. So you're looking at like squats, mountain climbers, push-ups, things that are going to strengthen our foundation. You have to look at foundational work. I mean, what is an elliptical doing for you? What is your purpose on an elliptical? Is there a purpose behind it? And if it's just to burn calories, like, don't you want to get stronger with your body? And let's start doing movement in order to get stronger with our body. You know, it just moving on a daily basis. When you're doing squats, lunges, push-ups, these are things that are going to make you feel amazing.
Yeah. And what did you say that a lot of times like cardio just seems like the way to go for especially women that are just a little too scared to kind of jump into like, I call it like the jungle, like, you know, like the weights and that kind of stuff. And what is it usually your message to those people that are just kind of like too afraid to step out of their comfort zone, that, you know, it's very easy to put on your headphones and, you know, jump on a treadmill, jump on an elliptical, nobody's watching you. There's a million of other people doing the same thing. So what is like, you know, how did you go about talking to women about, you know, ways that they can just step out of their comfort zone, go in there and go get it? And how do you usually get them started to that? And how did you make that transition for them?
So I think the biggest thing is, one, talking to them about their comfort zone and talking to them about their goals and having a purpose behind what they're doing. I fully believe that movement is medicine, and there should be a purpose behind your movement. And if you have these, goals, and you want to get stronger and you want to get more toned, let's take a look at what we're doing to get there. I really firmly believe that hiring a trainer is something that everybody should do, especially if you're not familiar with the foundational movements. If you don't know how to do a squat, if you don't know how to do a lunge, if you're unfamiliar with push-ups, planks, hiring a professional to help you with those foundational movements is key. But some people are uncomfortable with that. So that's where I actually really love group fitness environments. And I say that I'm a group fitness instructor, and I'm also a personal trainer, but a group fitness environment is so much less intimidating to women than one-on-one or doing it on their own, because they're in a classroom full of women and men, but I would say group fitness is a lot of women who are learning the same thing. And it's less intimidating when you're with 15 other people than when you're just on your own. And you have an instructor that, if you have a good instructor, they're cueing you on how to do the movements. And you have people around you that are encouraging you and helping to push you in the right direction.
Okay. So I guess for those of you guys listening in, I think that's a good, if you're a person that is definitely just starting and you're like, okay, where do I go? How do I step out of this comfort zone? I think that's a pretty, what Katy's saying is a pretty powerful thing, just to kind of look for something. And I do have actually a client, she's a female, and I even, brought this up to her to say, step out of the elliptical, the Stairmaster, and maybe just go in and try to do some grip fitness work. So you obviously it's also building a community type of thing, and I think it's definitely something more powerful and get you out there outside of the box that you sometimes feel you put yourself in as a result of obviously not knowing what to do per se. So
absolutely. And I love that you said the word community. I mean, you were talking about how boot camps are popping up everywhere and all of these HIIT classes, and it does build a community. And what it does is it pushes you harder than you push yourself. If you took that same workout and you were to do that in a room by yourself, you probably wouldn't push yourself half as hard as you would with a group of 20 other people doing that same workout. So I would think that's a very good place to start. Is one, you want to find a good gym with good trainers, good instructors that are going to push you in the right direction and that understand good form. But find a place that you're comfortable with, that's fun, and make it fun. Working out should not be a chore. It's, it breaks my heart when people feel like they have to work out, that it's a chore, because that's not how it should be looked at. It should be a celebration of what our bodies can do, not a punishment for our lives. I
love that. Okay, I'm gonna have to write that down. It's a celebration. What is working out? What is exercise? A celebration of what our bodies can do.
Yes, and so many people. I tell this to women every single day. I hear it all the time. Well, I ate this, I ate that, so then I had to go to the gym for the hour. And a workout is not a punishment. It is not a punishment for what you ate. It's not a punishment for where you're at in your fitness journey. It is a celebration of what your body can do.
Yeah, I think that's interesting. So what about when somebody this kind of flip the script a little bit more and maybe talk a little bit about somebody that is very trained, so somebody that is not afraid of strength training, but has been doing it for a while. Let's say, you get a client that kind of comes to this, but they're actually kind of seeing a plateau. Why do you think that are some of the reasons for that to happen? And how would you go about this for some of those women that are doing this? These are kind of the chronic, not only cardio doers, but also the chronic, they're lifting weights and you can see them and those kinds of things, but they kind of hit a plateau.
Yeah, so a couple questions would come to mind. And my first questions would be, one, how much cardio are you doing? If you're doing strength training and then doing an hour of cardio after, you're probably way overdoing it. Second would be recovery. Are you recovering? I think strength training can be addicting. And when you start, sometimes you don't want to stop. And you get, I work with women every single day where it's hey, tell me a little bit about your working out this week. And they're I went to the gym 7 days a week and I crushed it and I did legs 3 times. And I'm whoa. That is not doing anything for you. So I say with recovery, so exercise is the architect, recovery is the builder. And you have to give your body time to heal. And it's not an option. It is not an option. You have to give your body time to heal, or all you're doing is breaking down that muscle mass. And you're going to become exhausted. Again, it's going to mess with your hormones, and you're going to sit at the same body fat percentage, the same weight, because your body doesn't know what to do. So it's just kind of holding on to everything.
Okay, that's interesting, because I think it also depends, like I said, on the type of how trained a person may be. So, and I think you mentioned a very key word here, which I haven't really had a chance to talk about, which is recovery and resting, and it's kind of explaining the importance of resting. So what is like a typical, when you see, like, obviously, like the typical recommendation you would make for somebody, maybe we could put the two scenarios of somebody completely new, that's never touched a weight in their lives, and somebody which may, obviously, at the beginning, I would assume that they get, it's something new to them. They feel very sore and things like that, versus somebody that is like well trained. What would be like an optimal rest, recovery period of time, whether it's days or weeks, or however you decide to kind of like put it? What would be ideal, and what would you recommend? And you would say, like, most of our clients should be, trying to implement, depending on where they're at, I guess.
So I think sometimes it's hard to talk generalizations with that, because it totally depends on their lifestyle, their stress levels, if they're sleeping. It's going to be different from person to person. But if we're talking like a general statement, for somebody that's new to strength training, when you're just starting out, 3 to 4 days a week is going to be plenty for your body. And you will need those 3 days in between to rest and recover and hydrate and stretch, because you are going to be a lot more sore. Your muscles aren't as adapted as somebody who's been doing this for a couple of years.
Okay. And then somebody that would be more trained maybe would need a little bit less rest, depending, like, all the different factors, right?
So somebody that's more conditioned, I would definitely say at least 1 day a week, I want you to take off. I mean, I'm okay with active recovery. If you want to get your body moving a little bit, if you want to do some yoga, hey, you go for it. I think that's amazing. But I don't want you spiking that heart rate. I don't want you spending an hour on the treadmill. So 1 day at least, but I think 2 days is better.
Okay. And I love that you mentioned the word yoga, because I know there's a lot of people that ask me these questions about, like, well, how does yoga fit into the whole equation of, like, like training and exercise? Because I actually don't even have, like, I don't even know what most people consider yoga to be, depending on the type of yoga that they're doing. But would you consider that as kind of like a rest or active recovery day if you're doing yoga? Or I guess, does it depend on the type of yoga?
So I think it totally depends on the kind of yoga that you're doing. I went to a yoga class the other day, and she was like playing salt and pepper and having us doing like boot camp drills, and it was not what I was expecting. So I think you have to know what kind of yoga you're getting into. But I would say, more of a slow flow yoga or a yin yoga, something where your heart rate's staying really low, and you're holding poses for a little bit longer, and those muscles are lengthening and strengthening.
Okay, that's great, because I've had people coming to me and they do like 7 days of, like, for example, hot yoga, which I can't stand how somebody can do that. And I props to anybody that does it. I just can't deal with the heat that much.
Yes.
I would rather do cold yoga, and I think I'll be better off like that.
Don't ever go to a Bikram class, ever.
Yeah, that's what I heard. It's pretty rough. Yeah, so I guess it kind of like depends on the situation. But yeah, so that's an interesting kind of like scenario. So let's talk application for some of like the listeners and people that are interested in learning more through like this process. So what would be a typical process for you that kind of to go through with your clients, especially in person? And, what is like, the typical progression that you try to follow, and kind of talk to us a little bit more on, when do you make changes to somebody's training routine? When do people need to start? Okay, like, do you consider they should stay doing the same thing for like, just to make sure they move for a month, and then you kind of work kind of like them up in something different? Or what's kind of like your process when it comes down to strength training?
Yeah, so with my one-on-one clients and even my online clients, I focus on foundational movements first. And I want you to get, if you're not used to strength training whatsoever, then I don't even want to start you with a weight quite yet. I mean, for the first maybe, anywhere from 1 to 4 weeks, I want you to get strong with your body weight. I want you to be doing squats, lunges, push-ups, setting the foundational work, because if you're adding, if somebody doesn't know how to do a movement properly and you're adding load to that movement, you're creating an imbalance. You're creating improper movement. And you're going to set them further back than where they need to be. So one, are you doing the movement properly? If you are, then yes, we can add weight. We can add weight to that. But I still focus on, the foundational movements, the squats, the deadlifts, the lunges, bigger muscle groups, and then working the smaller muscle groups.
Okay. So you're kind of like working the way up to get to that point, right?
Yeah.
Gotcha. Now, do you coach also women, for like, sort of like online personal training and kind of like, specific kind of, like training programs and things like that online?
Yes, absolutely. I do. I love I do nutrition coaching, but obviously training is part of my coaching programs as well, because like I said before, I think movement is medicine and everybody should be moving and doing strength training. So I build women programs completely based on where they're at, either for at home or at the gym. If you're at home, I usually say to have like a couple of different options for dumbbells. But yeah, I build strength training programs specific to the individual.
Okay. And how would, I guess, like, because there's a lot of people, there's many questions that kind of pop up out of this, because I'm sure a lot of people are going to ask this so when somebody that does, because people sometimes are wondering, like, how do I do this? Because I think a lot of times, like, having, or hiring a personal training in person sometimes can be a little, intimidating for some women and men as well. So for some, I think, online personal training may be kind of like the way to go. So the first question would be, how do, for example, you would go about correcting either posture? Is it more like, you send them videos, or you ask them for videos or so like that, just to kind of like look at what they're doing and wait to kind of correct it? Or what's like the process for something like this?
So that is actually a very good question, because I think that's one thing that's it's like a hard barrier to cross with online training, because you're not in the room with them when they're working out. And if you're giving them higher reps, they could just be totally botching the last, 5 or 6 reps that you're doing. So I'm very big on telling everybody to focus on form, not speed, one. And if you feel like you're burning out at 10, then if you can give me 10 solid reps, that's what I'm really looking for. But as far as it comes to form, I mean, the internet is an amazing resource for all exercises. So I'm actually working right now on building a library of all the exercises that I send to my clients. That takes some time and it's a work in progress. So I send a lot of individual videos to clients on exercises that they're unfamiliar with. Me and my clients are an open book. I'm like, if you have any questions, if you don't know an exercise, I do not want this to be a guessing game at all. I want you to let me know. I will send you a video. If I don't have that video in my library, I will send you a YouTube video on the best person explaining what that exercise is.
Okay, that's crazy. That's good, because I think it's like the most important thing that people need to remember when it comes down to like online training, because a lot of people I think may kind of be resistant to doing something like this because of the fact that, well, one, they may feel like, well, I don't have somebody correcting me at the spot. I'm actually working with one of my dudes, and he lives in Seattle, and he's just obviously kind of like asking me how to do that. So sometimes he sends me videos, and my forte is not strength training or strength coaching. I have that credentials, but it's something that kind of popped up in my mind the other day. Is like, how do most like online trainers actually do something like this? But it's kind of interesting to know. Now, when you do coach some women, because I'm sure there's people wondering, like, what kind of equipment do you usually, how would you build your ideal home gym? Because I think a lot of people are really comfortable with that. So what would be some of the basics that you feel like should be part of your home gym? And I'm actually asking this for myself too, because I'm just building mine out. So I think this will be really helpful for me to know.
I think that's such a good question. I'm glad you're asking that. I just had a client email me a day ago asking me this, because she wants to build an at-home. She wants to switch from going to the gym to building an at-home gym. So first things first, you do not have to overcomplicate things. I think people feel like they need to get like a treadmill and all of this fancy stuff, and it's not what you need. So start with dumbbells, start with free weights, because there's so many movements that you can do with free weights, and they're so versatile. So I would say get a couple sets of free weights, of dumbbells, because what you're going to use for your upper body is not what you're going to use for your lower body, because we are much stronger in our lower body. The weight you're going to be using for your shoulders is not the weight you're going to be using for your back. So you want a little bit of variety. And I think they have those Bowflex weights that you can click and change anywhere from 50 pounds.
I think it's called Power. That's what the one I'm looking into. It's called Power Block.
Yeah. Yes, I've seen those. This is not a sponsored ad, by the way. Everyone listening.
Yes, I do not sell that, because if I was doing it, I was actually getting that for free, which I'm very upset about the fact that I had to buy that. But not a sponsored ad.
It's a genuine suggestion.
Yeah, so that's good.
So I would say start with that. I think it's amazing. If you can get a set that goes from 5 to 50, hey, in one, you are good to go. And then you want to look into things. I mean, a bench is always great. A bench, a mat, so very simplistic. And I absolutely love TRX and kettlebell.
Okay.
Because they're so versatile with what you can do with them. And it's a lot of core training with big movements.
Okay. So we have then the power blocks for kind of like the adjustable weights. Then we have TRX. We have the kettlebells, which I'm sure you can get maybe like some that can go anywhere between the little ones to like maybe like 30, 40 pounds or something like that.
Yeah. I mean kettlebells, you can start small. You can go, I would, if you're not familiar with kettlebells, start small. But why I love kettlebells so much is because it's strength training, it's cardiovascular training. It's all of the movements are strengthening your core. You can even do flexibility training with them. So they're very versatile. Same thing with the TRX. I would almost go TRX over kettlebell, but I'm sure there'd be a million people that would debate me on that.
Yeah. What are your thoughts on like resistance bands and things like that?
I love resistance bands. I mean, I know, like you see them all over Instagram, the circle bands for women to activate the glutes, the inner outer thighs. Those are very popular right now. And you want to know what? They work. Resistance bands work.
Okay, that's good to know, because a lot of people have asked me about this. And I do have like a set, so I think it's important for people to know.
Well, what's awesome about that is it's like a cheap piece of very effective equipment. Yeah. Resistance bands are not expensive. And if you've ever used resistance bands, they will burn your muscle group out in 10 seconds.
I'm not joking. Like I did, because like right now we build out like a small gym. So we do have like a little rack that one of my bosses actually gifted us for like kind of like a housewarming gift. So we build it out, and essentially I have like, what's it called? Like those like resistance bands. And I'm like, I'm just going to get like a little workout here done, and like a Thursday night or something like that, and I'm like, wow, like I'm getting a nice little pump out of this. So and it's just coming with a simple band. So definitely,
absolutely, it makes such a difference. You do the same workout with dumbbells that you do with a resistance band, it's going to give you a completely different feel, a completely different result. It's changing up the tempo. It's just tweaking it a little bit differently.
Yeah, I think that's awesome. Yeah, and just so you guys know, so also just to give you an extra tip, so if you were to build your own home gym, I would say to also consider getting on Amazon. They sell this like gym mats that are awesome. You can buy like it's like six pieces, which cover a good maybe like 4x4 feet or so of space for like $20. I got like 3 of them and actually built a pretty good half-size room gym. So, and then just like Katy's saying, you can do like your bands, which you can probably get a good set for like $70 to $80 or something cheaper, obviously. And then obviously like the power block, now you're looking more, that's a bit more expensive for like a set of those ones. It's going to be running to $300 to $400. And I think I'm not sure what the kettlebell cost, but it's something probably like closer to $50 or $60 each. So if you're looking again to build like a gym, maybe with like a small, maybe $300 to $500 gym, then you would have everything you need, honestly, to kind of get through a lot of that stuff. Absolutely.
And I would buy a foam roller for recovery, only because I love foam rolling, but
Okay, nice.
That's a whole nother podcast.
Yes, that could be I was actually gonna get into it, and I'm like, no, I think if we started
recovery, mobility. That's like a whole nother topic.
Okay, definitely we're gonna have to bring you on for another podcast for that. So yeah, so I think that's important. Now, the last question I want to ask you, because a lot of people may be asking, well, if I build my own home gym, what kind of cardio? If I was to implement cardio, but I don't have a machine to do cardio, what kind of things can people do at home to simulate or to do sort of like cardio training?
Your body and your body weight is the best piece of cardio equipment you could possibly imagine, and it's free. You don't have to pay for it. It's not grueling on a treadmill. You can do, even simple exercises like, hey, I'm going to do as many squats as I can in 30 seconds, go. You will be out of breath at 15. You can do jumping jacks. You can do mountain climbers. You can do jump lunges. Depending on if you want to add impact it or not. There are so many different exercises. I could literally sit here and list them. But I have a lot of videos on my Instagram page because I get a lot of requests for home workouts, especially with cardio movement. So I have a lot of videos on my Instagram page using no weight at all, or just like one piece of equipment, one dumbbell, that will give you, the cardio that you need. It is more HIIT cardio, but it's cardio, and I think HIIT's better. So
nice. Okay, that's great. So we're gonna direct all of you guys listening in to Katy's Instagram. She's super active there, so you can check out some of like her moves and some of the great content that she does have.
Yes, absolutely. And any questions you have, I love questions. Ask away.
Awesome. That's great. Cool. So we're wrapping up to the end of our podcast today, Katy, but I don't ever let anyone go without answering some rapid fire questions. So if you're ready for that.
Oh, no. Okay. I'm ready. You're making me sweat over here now.
No worries. So rapid fire questions is just like they're said. They are just the first thing that comes to your mind when I ask the question. And just like the first thing that comes up. Okay. So. Okay. Ready to go. So the first question would be, what's your favorite exercise? Go.
Deadlift, 100%.
Oh, nice. I like that. Number 2, what is like a favorite book that you'd like to recommend to people or that you personally read that changed your life?
Probably the most recent book I read is called Girl Wash Your Face. If you're a girl and active on Instagram, you've seen it. It's by Rachel Hollis, and it is amazing, and it will just teach you how to embrace life and be a badass.
Okay. Actually, my fiance read that book. She loved it too. So nice.
Yeah, good for her. I bet she did.
What's a podcast that you would recommend that you like to listen to? If you listen to podcasts, you can answer this. If you're not.
I do listen to podcasts, and I've actually been listening to a lot of the different podcasts in our mastermind, and probably I would say Jen Kennedy is amazing. So listen to Jen Kennedy, and then, oh man, I can't, I'm like drawing a blank right now. I don't even have my phone by me, so I can't pull up my favorite podcast.
No worries. It's okay. We got one. So we got Jen Kennedy. That's awesome. She's awesome. Okay. So last and most fun question out of all, it's going to be, if you are stranded on a desert island and you were to pick only one food to have for the rest of your life in that desert island, what would it be?
One food to have for the rest of my life. Oh man. I would say smoothies, but that's going to be like a lot of different foods.
No, that's fine. It's like you can pick anything. I
would say I am like the smoothie queen. I have different smoothies every single day. I send my clients emails with smoothie ideas all the time. I love them.
Okay, that's great, because I get all kinds of different weird things. So I got poke balls, I've gotten like lasagna, I got all kinds of stuff like that. So no worries, it's not weird.
Would be ice cream. I am like ice cream through and through.
Okay, so let's just kind of say milkshakes is kind of like a smoothie, right?
Yeah, well, me in the middle.
That's awesome. Well, get the calories for the gains, right?
That's right.
That's awesome. Well, Katy, it's been a pleasure to have you here today. Now, how can people find you? How can people, locate you, contact you, reach out to you, talk to you, so they can kind of find out more what you're up to and maybe possibly work with you as well?
Yes, I love that. I am on Instagram at Beautifully Conditioned. So you can find me. It's going to be at Beautifully Conditioned on Instagram. I also have a page on Facebook that's called Conditioned by Katy. So you can find me Conditioned by Katy on Facebook or Beautifully Conditioned on Instagram. I love new people and new faces and questions. So ask away, follow. And yeah, thank you so much for having me on your podcast.
No problem. Yeah, so you guys listen to Katy. So I want to make sure I'm going to link to her pages in the show notes. So if you guys want to make sure you give her a follow and give her a shout out and say hi to her, make sure you find her on any of those social media channels so you can stay in touch with her. So thank you so much, Katy, for being today's guest. I'll talk to you soon, and I'm sure we'll come back. We'll bring you back so we can chat up maybe a little bit about mobility and foam rolling and some of the good stuff.
Yes, my second favorite topic. I would love that. Thank you so much for having me on.
All right. Have a good one.
You too.
You have been listening to Viva Nutrition Radio. Couple things before you take off. If you enjoyed this episode, please, I would love to get your feedback. So feel free to drop down a review, and I will be forever grateful. Also, if you like this podcast, make sure you hit the subscribe button. We have it on iTunes, Spotify, or Google Play. And lastly, if you would like to receive a freebie from me, make sure you sign up for our newsletter at www.vive-nutrition.com. See you guys in the next episode. Ciao, ciao.